Throughout the histories of Arda, there have been many characters that have touched the annals of history with their remarkable feats and abilities, some for the Shroud of Darkness, and others for the power of good. We recently looked at one such character, Saruman, who once of the light turned to the overwhelming might of Sauron in the shadow. However, today we look at Legolas, whose origins are shrouded in mystery, but had a significant impact on the forces of good in their final triumph over the Dark Lord. Greetings all, I'm your guide, the Archivist. Today I will look at the life of Legolas, their mysterious origins, and their impact on the War of the Ring, which saw the ultimate defeat of the Dark Lord. Appearance and presentation. According to the archives, Legolas was a Sindar elf who moved with swiftness and grace, and possessed fair long hair, most likely pale or silvery in nature. He played a vital role in the Fellowship of the Ring in the Third Age. Being son of the Elf King Thranduil of Mirkwood, he was also of noble lineage, being a prince of Mirkwood. He was also a messenger for the king, as well as a master archer possessing great talents. He presented overall as a capable warrior, and also a conflicted character in the books, with a lot of nuance to his character. Although he lived among them, Legolas was not fully of the Sylvan Elves. As a son of the Elven King Thranduil, who originally had come from Doriath, Legolas was at least half Sindar. However, his mother's identity has never been revealed to the readers of Tolkien. This is complicated by the fact that a small minority of the Sindarin elves ruled the predominantly sylvan woodland realm of the northern Mirkwood area, a minority of which Legolas belonged to. The Sylvan elves were considered to be simpler and more private than the Sindarin elves, who were considered a noble class. After Morgoth was defeated and all Grand Elf kingdoms of Beleriand were destroyed, the Sindar nobles can be seen as having reverted to a simpler society and never again rose to the great elf kingdoms of the First Age. Legolas also presented as having a deep-set value and appreciation for nature, as many elfkin from Tolkien's world had. After the Fellowship parted from Fangorn Forest, he longed to return once more to explore its wonders more thoroughly. Despite his sometimes conflicted character, he had a great sense of devotion towards his friends and allies and cared for them deeply, even forming a bond with Gimli, despite the differences between their two races. Powers and abilities. According to the archives, Legolas shared many of the boons of his race in terms of powers and abilities. His incredible grace and stealth allowed him to walk silently on grass and snow, leaving few tracks to be found, allowing him to travel great distances undetected by others. Great vision is also one of the most commonly known boons of the elves, being able to see vast distances and in the dark with incredible clarity. He had a true affinity with nature and animals, allowing him to befriend and tame wild horses in mere moments, gaining their trust easily. He could even sleep whilst walking, showing some true abilities of concentration. Legolas was a master archer and bowman, which was showcased numerous times throughout the books and in the film adaptation of the series. He was given the longbow of the Galadrim during his time in Lothlorien, which he used throughout his travels with the Fellowship of the Ring, and proved to be stronger and stouter than his bow in the fashion of Mirkwood, typically smaller and easy to carry and conceal. He also wielded a long, white knife like a dagger in close combat engagements. Origins. Legolas's origins and details of his early life are something of a complete mystery to the archives. Despite being such a prominent character in the arc of the Third Age, and specifically the Fellowship and the War of the Ring, there are very few, if any, details that specify Legolas's full parentage, age, or any details surrounding his childhood and life before the War of the Ring begins in full. We know for sure that Legolas was the only son of Thranduil, king of the elves of northern Mirkwood. His exact date of birth and mother's name are unknown. As far as has been revealed and sure by the texts, he's anywhere between 500 to 3,000 years in age, judging by him being born approximately sometime at the start of the Third Age. His father is Thranduil, but his mother is never revealed. Thranduil is of a similar age and ilk to Elrond, whose daughter Arwen is well over 2,000 years old, and this may give some indication of Legolas's potential age. War of the Ring. Legolas's main entries into the archives come during the War of the Ring once he arrives at the Council of Elrond in Rivendell, a messenger at the behest of his father to discuss Gollum and the One Ring. Legolas volunteered his services to pit himself against the Nine Riders, and joined the Fellowship to represent the elves and set out on the quest to destroy the One Ring. Legolas was a boon to the party with his specific abilities and talents, and kept to the rear of the party to use his keen vision to scout around at all times for danger. On the mountains of Caradhras, Legolas was able to run nimbly over the snow, leaving behind very few footprints, whereas his companions struggled to plough through it, having great difficulty traversing the mountain. Gandalf advised they turn back and head through Moria, but Legolas was against the idea. However, while passing through Moria, he and Gimli fought frequently, as their races often had over the ages, as it is known to the archives that Thranduil once imprisoned Gloin, Gimli's father, in Mirkwood. However, despite their differences, throughout the journey he and Gimli often found each other together and became friendly in nature despite their differences. Legolas saw the pure heart of Gimli when he spoke to Galadriel with deference and respect, and became fond of him as they continued their journey. This is where Legolas received his Galadriel bow, and later used it whilst travelling over the Anduin to shoot a Nazgul flying overhead on his fell beast with one shot, which would have been nigh impossible for a regular person or even an elf. When the Fellowship was later broken up, Legolas and Aragorn sang for the loss of Boromir before leading the way on a tracking mission looking for Merry and Pippin, who had been taken and abducted in Rohan by Uruk-hai. This was also the week that he would receive his grey horse Arod, which he and Gimli would often ride together during their travels, received from Éomer and the raiders of the Rohirrim. After this moment they journeyed into Fangorn Forest, where they are reunited with Gandalf, reborn as Gandalf the White, and Galadriel's prophecy is delivered to Legolas's ears. Legolas Greenleaf, long under tree, in joy thou hast lived, beware of the sea. If thou hearest the cry of the gull on the shore, thy heart shall then rest in the forest no more. One of the most memorable moments of Legolas during his entries into the archives are his tales of orc slaying contests with Gimli, which Gimli eventually wins with a score of 43-42, though Legolas was not a poor sport, stating, "You have passed my score by one, but I do not grudge you the game. So glad am I to see you on your legs." Once in Rohan, he and Gimli followed Aragorn, Elladan, and Elrohir to the paths of the dead to seek to summon the Horde to their banner and fulfill their oaths. His horse Arod refused to enter the paths, but Legolas calmed him with his animal affinity. Their company rode on, with Elladan at the last, but Legolas looked back and saw the dead following the Grey Company, stating the dead are following, I see the shapes of men and their horses, and pale banners like shreds of clouds, and spears like winter thickets on a misty night. The dead are following. The archives also show Legolas battling at Pelennor Fields with Gimli and the Sons of Elrond, despite them not appearing during the film adaptations. This is again an iconic vision in those visuals, with Legolas felling whole Mumakil by himself during the whole battle. Beyond them, in the Houses of Healing in Minas Tirith, his memory awakened his sea longing in him, and he took part in the final battle of the Black Gate as well as part of the company surrounding Aragorn, who is now presumed the leader and king apparent of the Men of the West. The One Ring was destroyed, and Legolas survived beyond the end of the Third Age and into the New. His final fate. According to the archives, after the destruction of the One Ring and of Sauron, Legolas stayed for the coronation of Aragorn and his marriage to Arwen, which he would likely have felt mixed elation at. He then travelled with Gimli together to Helm's Deep, visiting the Glittering Caves, and then travelled through Fangorn Forest, which he had longed to return to since visiting, to see the wonders of nature. Eventually, Legolas came to Ithilien with some of his people, with his father's leave, to live out his remaining time in Middle-earth, helping to restore the woodlands that had been war-torn, as this area of the world had been heavily ravaged by the Wars of the Ring. After the death of Aragorn Elessar, Legolas's close friend and ally, Legolas decided to make a ship and depart Middle-earth, taking his best friend Gimli with him. He was invited especially by Legolas to the Undying Lands, being the first and only dwarf ever to do so, which is an interesting thought. Beyond this, he never again returned to Middle-earth. And so I have now covered the content for this video, but if there's anything that has been missed, please share them in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this content, please remember to like the subscribe and like waystones down below. Na luego vanadvan. Until we meet again.